And we're being asked to essentially step into stewardship of the entire planetary environment. We have to have then a vision. We have to have a dream, not a vision or a dream, the vision, the dream. And it can't come from the personality of individual human beings. It has to come out of the bones of the planet. Yeah. And this is, I think, what the psychedelic experience is broadcasting. It's broadcasting the hologrammatic, fractal, altogether, all at once image of totality that our religions have sensed and called God, that the shaman have learned to use as a vast kind of computer for extracting information and for generating healing energy. But it is that there is some kind of controlling, minded, integrated thing behind nature. And we're not going to understand that this weekend, next week, or ever. This is not a relationship of solving a problem. It's a relationship of being an initiate of a mystery and then living your life, in the light of that. And the task of understanding is endless, because understanding is simply the integrated coordination of pattern. And nature is pattern upon pattern, upon pattern, upon pattern, upon level. It has no depth. Its measure cannot be taken. Everything is infinite, and everything is animate, and everything is filled with a kind of
somebody just came into my chat
concern for humanity. I mean, we are the lame little brother because we seem to be cut off from all the rest of
enclosed house.
Well, that's kind of a Blakean take on it.
The shamanistic cultures themselves
So I still have to craft a campfire and craft a
notion of a
3x,
fall.
4x4.
And that
I thought that's what I already crafted. But
and this may just be the people that we happen to interview in our era where we're actually studying it, but that the old days of shamanism were the good days, and what we have now is diluted. And
no,
is that just a matter
to build the base hut? I don't think so.
Cultural contact with other cultures, and
I'm not too sure about the doors.
Shamanistic
Even though I've been
cultures
playing this since like 2017,
isolated,
I rarely
or
build.
is indeed
like
there a different quality
I just
to
want
the
to sound.
time?
I'm not too familiar.
I
I have a
led
lot
to
of the
a general
guides.
fall
I might be able to make you something. I can
amongst-
just drop it to you.
Well,
I did pick up the
it's a very
stuff.
complicated
So I have walls,
question.
I have ceilings.
The
I just don't have
answer
doors,
gets
but I have to
pretty
see
technical,
what
or
happens if I
talking
try to
about
craft
it gets
anyways.
pretty technical.
I think it's disabled right now, and they're just in the game.
The thing that's so interesting about psilocybin and
sure.
DMT is that they're so closely related to ordinary brain chemistry.
I've seen people towing them.
The brain
towing
chemistry
metal
of all
doors. I don't know
higher
if you can even
animals
craft
runs
metal doors,
largely on serotonin.
Oh, so you have to find them.
Serotonin is 5-hydroxytryptamine.
It depends. Like I've seen
DMT is
loose spawns around the map, like a
NN-dimethyltryptamine.
fully metal platform
Psilocybin
or a
is
metal wall, and then you
phosphoroloxy
need a
and
tow cable in order to bring
N-dimethyltryptamine,
it up
but
to
the
you. I don't know
phosphoroloxy
if
group
they
goes
changed it. I
off
thought
as
you
it
used to
crosses
have
the
that.
blood-brain barrier, so it's
I saw a Galaga, Space Invaders.
hydroxy
King.
and N-dimethyltryptamine.
Is
So
that
it's very
playable?
interesting that these powerful, naturally occurring hallucinogens are in many cases only one molecule away from endogenous neurotransmitters. So in answer to your question, it's possible to suggest that we're as close as one mutation away from significant shifts in the chemical mix of the human brain. And for instance, in the pineal gland, there's an enzyme called adenosine, which is chemically 6-methoxy-tetrahydroharmalan. It's very closely related to the harmine alkaloids in ayahuasca. Well, the persistent myth about ayahuasca is that it creates states of group mindedness and telepathy. The original alkaloid was actually named telepathine, until it was discovered that it was structurally similar to harmine, which had been previously described by Hochstein and Paradis. So, in other words, what's going on here is the possibility that language, telepathy, and all of these mental abilities that are unique among human beings have to do with a very, very small number of mutations in the brain-amine production pathways. One of the things that I want to talk about here is the possibility of new forms of communication, and that the psychedelics can stimulate new forms of communication among human beings, even in the way that they created language in the first place. In other words, I see language as a Model A version of something which could be made a lot more efficient and better and effective. You had something, and then, or did you? You go ahead.
When humankind changes direction and then goes towards the altered state, the psilocybin altered state, and that projection, what do you think that we will do with science and all of the stuff that we've created that is destroying us?
Well, science, there are different ways to practice science. The Greek style was, science was a spiritual undertaking. The purpose was to know, the idea being that somehow there was something good about knowing. I mean, I had a philosophy professor who said, first of all, I'll teach you how to recognize the truth. Secondly, I'll try to teach you what's so great about it. And this is that kind of a situation. Science, philosophers of science are perfectly aware of the limitations of science. It's the thousands and thousands of workbench scientists who think of themselves as servants of a world religion who create the problem. We need to know how matter works, and we need to know the things which science tells us, but it has no basis for extrapolating into human values. And the culprit there is the concept of social science. This is an obscene idea, and we should disabuse ourselves of it immediately. Social science, psychology, intellectual history, even linguistics, I would say, and philology and politics. These people should find honesty. And they're not scientists, and they're mucking up. I mean, it was a grand dream of science that it would extend its methods into social phenomena, having had such great success in the 19th century with Darwin and Wallace and biology. They thought, well, then Herbert Spencer and those people, why not just extend it to society? But the problem is there are emergent properties in society that exceed the descriptive engines of science. There are emergent properties in biology. I mean, biology may also have to be left out of science. I mean, biology is classificatory, and it works very well there. But in terms of mechanism and understanding, it's pretty murky. DNA was decoded in 1950. The molecular geneticists promised a golden age shortly to follow, and it's 40 years later, and they still don't understand gene expression or what all this stuff is in the DNA. It's been very disappointing, considering what was promised. I think science is an art. Everything is an art, because we have no sure knowledge of anything. I mean, maybe mathematics is not an art, because there, you work from artificially constructed premises. I'm very keen on science. I just don't like its philosophical pontifications. As a method, it's been very effective, but it's bred great pride in it, and it's thought that it could turn itself to domains where it was completely inappropriate.
just I have a lot of questions, but I want to try to limit things to that. Maybe if she wanted to.
And I haven't tried mushrooms yet. I sent away to the kit and look around that. But a lot of the things that you've been explaining and describing, to me, have become a reality over the last year. Just the usage of hashish, just ingestion of it, on a very, I have to say, a very probably limited, because I'm comparing my experience to the psilocybin descriptions that you give, and they sound, tremendous. I think the question I'm looking for is, before you, I guess, got involved with psilocybin and DMT and things like that, were you predisposed to saving the planet and being a humanistic type of person? And did the DMT and psilocybin did it take you to a more profound awareness of, what you as a human wanted to do?
Well, I've thought about all of this, because it's weird to have the life I have. It's so strange. I mean, until I went into therapy, I thought I had the most ordinary family in the world. And then once you're in therapy, you discover, that no, it was the most insane scene you've ever heard of, and you just didn't notice. But I've always been interested in nature, and I've always been interested in beauty. And I think it was the pursuit of beauty that served me best, because when I was a kid, first I started out collecting rocks, and then I collected butterflies. And then in my emergent phallic phase, I was an amateur rocketeer. And the major thrill there was setting off these explosive fuels and watching the possibility of shrapnel and all this stuff. And then as I got into rockets, I got into science fiction. And science fiction I really consider a proto-psychedelic drug, because what science fiction does is it gives permission to imagine. It says, try it this way, this way, this way. And then you get, as a kid, you get the idea, that anything is possible. That's what science fiction teaches you. And then, and I was really obsessive about science, and I wanted to be an astronautical engineer, and Wernher von Braun was my hero and all that. And then it sort of flipped at some point, and I got in, and I decided that I had been terribly narrow, and I was figuring